Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on AngularJS 2.0. So my name is Noor Basha, Senior Marketing Manager at Winwire Technologies, and I'll be a moderator for today's webinar. As most of you know, we are hosting a series of webinars on topics like .NET, Visual Studio, AngularJS, Azure, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So before we get started on today's topic, let me highlight a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end. A recording of this session will be made available to you in next 24 to 48 hours. So as you see on the slide, today we are going to talk on AngularJS 2.0, the new paradigm of application development. And this session will be delivered by my colleague, Mr. Abhishek Chandra, who is the technical lead at Winwire Technologies. And he brings over 10 plus years of experience in the IT industry and is a Microsoft certified specialist. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Abhishek. Abhishek, good morning, welcome, and over to you.
Thanks, Noor. So good morning and good evening to folks joining from different parts of the world. Hello everyone and welcome to webinar on Angular 2. So my name is Abhishek Chandra and I'm working as a technical lead with Winwire Technologies. So before we go ahead with the details of the webinar, I would just like to brief you about the agenda. So first of all, we'll be discussing about how Angular 2 is different from Angular 1 and what are the motivations of using Angular 2. What are the new features are there in Angular 2, and then we'll be discussing about some core concepts of Angular 2, like we'll be discussing about event handlers, property bindings, and template syntax in Angular 2. And then we'll have a demo. If you have any questions, post these questions to us. We'll try to answer as many as we can towards the end of the webinar. So what are the motivations? What are the reasons for going for Angular 2? So basically, first and foremost reason is performance. Basically, so Angular 2 sometimes folks say like it's 4 to 5 times faster than Angular 1, and basically Angular 2 is its entire reimagining of the AngularJS framework for the modern web, taking into account whatever has been the learning from the Angular 1 over the past 5 years. So it is a client-side framework, and Angular 2 applications are written in Typescript and are compiled to JavaScript. So basically at the high level, Angular 2 is a rewrite of the framework, and thus it is not very much compatible with Angular 1. So one of the reasons motivations for going for Angular 2 is better browsers. So in the last 5 years, when the Angular was first conceived, the web has changed significantly. For example, 5 years ago, it was close to impossible to build cross-browser website without the help from something like jQuery. Today's browsers are not only more consistent in their DOM implementations, but these implementations are also faster and can leverage the features of the new framework. One of the other reasons going for Angular 2 would be thinking of mobile in mind. So in the last 5 years, if you notice, computing landscape has changed drastically. Phones and tablets, they're everywhere these days. While Angular 1 can be used to build mobile apps, it wasn't designed with keeping mobile in mind in the very first place. And this includes like the fundamental problems lacking in terms of performance, inability to cache precompiled views, and even lacking of touch support in the mobile, which is needed. So all these reasons gave rise to the need for a new framework which could cater to these requirements. And Angular 2 is ES6 compliant. It follows it complies ES6 standards. And the other reason which we can think of is like ease of use. AngularJS was not very easy to learn, and the original this goes back to the original design problem with which Angular 1 was designed. It was not designed for something, and additionally we keep on adding the features. For example, initially there were no custom directives. Then they all were hard coded. Then API was added on top of them to make them available. There were no controllers. Then the controllers got added. So you're getting the bigger pictures. Like we keep on adding and bolting the features, which has somehow resulted in a very less elegant and consistent API. So that was also the reason for going for Angular 2. So I talked about performance. So let's see how Angular 2 behaves with respect to Angular 1 as far as the performance is concerned. So if you consider a baseline application which is a pure JavaScript application and compare that with Angular 1 and Angular 2, which is using view cache and which is not using view cache, both the case. So you can roughly make out Angular 2 is close to 4 to 5 times faster as far as the speed and performance is concerned with respect to Angular 1. And this is a fair enough reason to to upgrade or scale to Angular 2. So now let's look at what all has been changed in Angular 2 with respect to Angular 1. So $scope has been removed. We have removed Angular.module. Instead it's using Angular 2 is using ES6 module. HTML template syntax has changed, and Angular will no longer include its own miniature version of jQuery, that is JQLite has been removed. Controllers have been removed. The focus is on, as I told, ES6, and Angular 2 is more unified around web components. So basically, it allows developers to create, a custom or custom components which can be encapsulated, and these components can describe their own views and can be easily packaged for distribution. So one bunch of developers develop one component, and these can be made available to others to use in their application by importing these components. So these are at the high level changes in Angular 2 with respect to Angular 1. Now let's talk a bit about TypeScript. So TypeScript is basically a superset of JavaScript. It is compiled to JavaScript for runtime use, and as you can see in this diagram, ES6 is a superset of ES5, and TypeScript is a superset of ES6. So even though Angular 2 is written in TypeScript, you don't have to use it to write Angular 2 applications. The framework will also work great equally with ES5 and ES6. But however, the biggest selling point for for TypeScript is the tooling feature. So it provides advanced auto completion, navigation, and refactoring features. So which helps to write a better code, which is required for large code bases, and the ease of refactoring is significantly improved. And I'll show you how TypeScript we generally compiles to JavaScript and simple syntax of those. So also TypeScript has a strong support under Visual Studio and WebStorm. So let me show you. If you go to this typescriptlang.org and you click on this play, so here left hand side you can see the typical TypeScript, and the right hand side the corresponding JavaScript you can see. So you can see you can select classes, and notice the difference, like how we are declaring the classes and how we are defining the types here. And right hand side you can see the corresponding JavaScript based upon this particular TypeScript. You can it supports inheritance. If you select inheritance, if you've seen this example, snake and horse, these classes are derived from animal class. It supports generics, it supports modules. If you go here, if you and you can see the compile time errors. If you remove some keyword, it starts saying that property greeted does not exist on type of things, so that it's not. You can at the compile time itself you can correct errors, and you can see your corresponding JavaScript code. And as you can see, it is very much object oriented. It supports all the object oriented features like class, inheritance, generics, types. So it's more moving towards object oriented way of doing things. Yeah. So at the high level, if we compare Angular 1 and Angular 2, what are the high-level steps involved in Angular 2 and what are the steps involved in Angular 1. So let's look at Angular 1 first. So in Angular 1, we first used to create the module. We used to declare the ng app. We create the controller. We attach items to the $scope. We declare our controller, and finally we create the template. So these 6 steps at the high level defines how we create an Angular JS applications. Whereas in Angular 2, if you see, these steps have been reduced. Here it is all component based. So I'll talk in detail about component later. So here first we create the component, then we go ahead and create a template. We bootstrap the the root component or the root level component, and then the final step is transpilation. So where in which ES6 code is converted to ES5 code. And since we are writing applications for the future browsers, so by default transpilation going forward will be supported in the future browsers. So primarily it will remain a 3-step process down the line as compared to Angular 1. Now let's consider scenarios where we have already applications written in Angular 1 and somehow we wanted to upgrade to Angular 2. So what are the options we have? So at the high level, Angular team has given 2 options: ng upgrade and ng forward. While ng upgrade lets you mix Angular 2 code in your existing Angular 1 application. So by doing that, you can take advantage of Angular 2 improved speed and API. And the way forward is like you replace component by component 1 bit at a time over the course of your releases. So slowly and gradually, you convert your Angular 1 application to Angular 2 in this approach. Whereas in ng forward, actually it's not a real upgrade for framework. But instead, how it does is like in ng forward, we can use it to create Angular 1 apps that looks like Angular 2, and it is in the syntax of Angular 2, so that team can become over the period of time proficient in Angular 2 syntax, and then they can finally make a move. So let's talk about some of the core building blocks of Angular applications. So let's talk about the component first. So here, if you notice, component, it consists of 2 parts basically. It consists of @ component, which is if you notice here, this is a decorator, and component class, which is below defined here. This decorator basically specifies the metadata settings on the component. In this particular example, if you notice, the selector property here, if you notice, is used to bind the component to the my app element in the DOM. So in my DOM, I have a my app element, and by using this selector property, I am binding that to my component. So the other important feature of Angular 2 to consider is like Angular 2 application is a tree of components basically. So all the components that are used must be known via Bootstrap. Angular 2 at the high level provides component-driven architecture, and the central element is the component. Components can contain both the state and the processing information. They can accept parameters and they can trigger events. And components can be used within other components and can react on other components. So that this is how the communication between the components happen. So in this particular example, if you see, app component is the root component, which has one child component 1. Child component 1 is comprised of 2 further child components, child component 2 and child component 3. Now let's have a look at local variables. So just look at the slide and try to figure out what difference you can make out from Angular 1. So one obvious catch is like this hash keyword, hash new name. So it is a new concept in Angular 2. By using # on this particular text box, it gives me a handle, and so now this is local to just this particular, this has become a local variable to just this particular template, and we can bind it to the page also. So new name.value is the property of that input, so that if I change the value of it, it changes on the page automatically. And how it is being useful, we'll see in the next slide when we are doing event handlers. So if you see this one, again, the notice is like if you see this parenthesis bracket and click how we have defined, and we are calling a change name. So in this case, what is happening is like change name is a function in the component, and from here I can pass on an event that is clicked on. That is when a button is clicked, I will call this change name function, and I can pass the new name dot value and pass. So this will pass whatever the value is there in the text box. It will get passed to this value to this new name dot value, and I can pass it to the component controller. So if you notice in just a couple of lines, we have created a local variable and passed its value to the corresponding function. So one thing to notice, however, is that event bindings in Angular 2 are used to upgrade the application model. That's the main point, with event bindings are used. Now let's have a look at property binding. So if you notice this particular example, it has array bracket syntax for this text content what we are showing. So what is happening at high level is like rather than binding to the attributes, we are binding it to the local properties of the DOM element. So now if we update the text box in this case, that is whenever the new name dot value changes, I am going to update the value of the text content of this particular span. So this is how the property bindings happens, and it is important in Angular 2. One of the feature of Angular 2 is change detection, and change detection basically uses property bindings to update the view. Updating the view, one more thing to notice about is like updating the view is unidirectional, and it is generally top-down fashion. So at the high level, Angular 2 is updating the application model and updating the view. So let's try to look at overall things in the entire perspective. So okay, so look at the this particular thing, and we'll try to discuss about the overall flow. So we know we are displaying the name from the component controller because there we have our name property, and below, if you notice, we have a text box and a button. So in this text box, we have a local variable new name. So when this button is clicked, we call the function change name, which is inside of our component controller, and pass the value of this local variable, that is new name dot value. And in the component, we just say that this dot name equals to new name, and the name property gets updated accordingly. So we are going to see this particular example in our demo. Also, all these things, whatever I have discussed in the slides, we are going to see in our demo. So, so what advantage it brings? So one of the greatest benefit of using new syntax is uniformity. It says that whenever I am declaring an event handlers, it will be parentheses, and any type of event can fit in there. This works for basically all sort of events, including custom events on web components. And whenever we bind to property, we just have to use array bracket syntax. So this brings component of uniformity in it. There's no like I do not have to think when I have to use ng click, ng model. So it's it has become a uniform, like parenthesis for event and array bracket for the properties. So now let's have a look at a demo. So I have a couple of demos here. So in this one, as I told in my slides, we'll have one text box. Whenever you type anything, any value on that text box, and when you click on a button, that value I have to pass in a function that will be called on the button click, and I have to set a property which I'll be printing it on the screen. So let's open it. Let me type in anything here, and I click on click. it says hello, whatever the name type. So if you just look at the code of it, so I have a index page in which my a HTML component is defined, and in this particular component I am selecting using my selector and providing that DOM element. Here I have used inline template in which I can have, put it in a separate HTML and can refer it here, but for the sake of simplicity I have just put it here. So here I have a text box which has a local variable of new name. On click of this particular and there's a button. On click of this button, I am calling a change name function. I am passing the handler to the event and the value of this local variable. Over here, I am reading the value of the local variable of the value passed and assigning it to a name property and displaying that in the UI. So if I comment this particular piece of code, okay. Now let me try to run it. So it says hello undefined because it is not able to get the property. So which is expected. So if I uncomment it, again we are going to get the values and we can display it on the UI. So here it says hello, whatever the name typed. So if you notice the structure of the application here, I have an index page and I have a boot.js and a app component.js. So yeah. So in the boot.js, we are loading the root component, that is the app component. Over here in this particular component, we are as I mentioned, we are initializing the selector and defining the template, initializing the constructor, and all the business logic has been written here. So if I would have required a sub component sort of thing, I would have imported that component over here and did the functionality as per the business logic. So let me show you one more. This, if you notice, is using the JavaScript. It's not using the TypeScript. So let me show you one more simple example, which is with the same example. Everything is same. It is with it is using TypeScript. So I have a TypeScript file. Over here, I have a component class in which I have written a function. This function will be called on click of a button, which is being defined over here. I'm calling this function, and I'm trying to just print the one property value. Let's try to run it and see this up. Yeah. So if I click, it should show me whatever the hello that name of the text box. So so as you have seen that Angular 2 applications, they are much different from Angular 1. The new version of the framework is simpler to learn and has more concepts like Angular based architecture, basically component based architecture. It is designed with keeping mobile in mind and is significantly faster than 1.x series. So with the new component model, Angular is setting itself to work with the future of web standards like web components. And hopefully down the line, more and more applications will be developed using Angular 2. So with that, I will pass on to control to Noor for any questions we have.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks for the quick session and also the demo. Yes, like we have lots of questions coming in, but definitely we would take that as a first come first serve basis. And if we are not able to cover up any questions in the next 5 minutes, we are sure that we will respond back to you offline in next 24 to 48 hours. So the first question for the day is, can you give some example of transpilers which you have spoken?
Yeah. So one of the biggest example of transpiler is Babel, and the other one is Tracer from Google, and TypeScript. TypeScript is also an example of transpiler. So we have to understand the role of transpiler. So transpiler basically converts your ES6 to ES5 code basically very quickly and fastly. So if you suppose you you have written your application in ES6 and your browser is not supporting ES6 standards, so what it will do, it will try. It is supposed to show the result. So it will try to convert that to ES5 and and show the response basically. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. So is AngularJS 2 backward compatible with AngularJS 1?
Actually, no, because Angular 2 is a rewrite of the framework. So it is, it's not following the similar, semantics has been followed in Angular 1. So it is not backward compatible with Angular 1. However, you can convert your Angular 1 applications to Angular 2 by using, ng upgrade and ng forward or, rewriting your code that way.
Thanks, Abhishek. So the next question is, are component and directive same?
Actually, sort of, but there is a slight difference. Like you can say, like components are directive with views. So because directive does not have view functionality, and in component you can define your views also, view template also. So with that perspective, you can say like component are directive with views.
Okay, thanks. So the other question is it necessary to have one top-level component in AngularJS 2?
Yeah, so it is basically required to have one top-level component, so which will be bootstrapped and which will be able to load the other components needed, if that is the case.
Thanks. Also, can you elaborate about AngularJS 1 and AngularJS 2 dependency injection?
Yeah, so at the high level in Angular 2, they have tried to simplify the dependency injection mechanism. So in Angular 1, basically you could have various ways in which you can inject your dependencies, like link function by position you can do, and controller function by name, etc. But in Angular 2, there's only one mechanism possible, and that is by by constructor injection.
Okay. Thank you. So I will take one more question for the day. So can you give some good resources where we can go and find more information on AngularJS 2 from ground zero? Like, do you have some resources or some sites that you can provide more information on?
Yeah, you can go to the official website of Angular 2, and it has a lot of documentation, a lot of quick start tutorials which you can basically refer, and there are a lot of materials officially available on Angular 2 now these days in their official website.
Okay. So I'll just one last quick question is, say, is it possible for me to use Angular 1.0 and 2.0 in the same project while we are upgrading, in the process of upgrade?
It is possible, like I mean, yeah, it is possible. That's what the ng upgrade option tells us about. Here, like basically, we have to at the end of the day, try to write Angular 1 application in the way Angular 2 are written. So that way, like parallelly, and you have to go like module by component, you have to do the upgrade, do the changes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Abhishek, for taking up those questions. I know we are almost close to end of the session. Again, thanks everyone for taking time to join this webinar. and I hope you found it informative. Just before we wind up, I would like to update our next webinar is on Feb 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and the topic is Azure IoT Hub. And we look forward you joining to this webinar. Thanks and have a good day. Abhishek, thanks and have a good day.
Yep, thanks everyone, and we look forward to your to our next webinar. Yep, thanks all.